that, Steve. Fuck. That feels the warmth, alright.
Fires. They're actually on the rise. These are what we call megafires. Megafires are the result of the way we've managed this Western landscape over the last 150 years and a steadily warming climate. Much of the destruction that we are currently seeing could actually have been avoided. Actually on the rise. These are what we call megafires. Megafires are the result of the way we've managed this Western landscape over the last 150 years in a steadily warming climate. Much of the destruction that we are currently seeing could actually have been avoided. So why is this happening? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. You see this forest? Isn't it beautiful? Well, the forests that we see today look nothing like the forests of 100 or 150 years ago. Thankfully, panoramic photos were taken in the 1930s from thousands of western mountaintop lookouts, and they show a fair approximation of the forest that we inherited. The best word to describe these forests of old is patchy. The historical forest landscape was this constantly evolving patchwork of open and closed canopy forests of all ages, and there was so much evidence of fire. And most fires were pretty small by today's standards. And it's important to understand that this landscape was open, with meadows and open canopy forests, and it was the grasses of the meadows and in the grassy understories of the open forests that many of the wildfires were carried. There were other forces at work too, shaping this historical patchwork. For example, topography, whether a place faces north or south, or it's on a ridgetop or in a valley bottom. Elevation, how far up the mountain it is. And weather, whether a place gets a lot of snow and rain, sunlight and warmth. These things all worked together to shape the way the forest grew. And the way the forest grew shaped the way fire behaved on the landscape. Let's add humans to the mix. For 10,000 years, Native Americans lived on this landscape and they intentionally burned it a lot. They used fire to burn meadows and to thin certain forests so they could grow more food. They used fire to increase graze for the deer and the elk and the bison that they hunted. And most importantly, they figured out if they burned in the spring and the fall, they could avoid the out-of-control fires of summer. Let's add humans to the mix. For 10,000 years, Native Americans lived on this landscape and they intentionally burned it a lot. They used fire to burn meadows and to thin certain forests so they could grow more food. They used fire to increase graze for the deer and the elk and the bison that they hunted. And most importantly, they figured out if they burned in potent fire breaks, interrupting further the flow of fire across this landscape. Later came roads and railroads, and they acted as potent fire breaks, interrupting further the flow of fire across this landscape. And then something happened which caused a sudden pivot in our society. And from this point on, it was now fire suppression and not wildfires that would become a prime shaper of our forests. After World War II, timber harvesting got going in the West, and the logging removed the large and the old trees, and these were survivors of centuries of wildfires. And the forest filled in, thin-barked, fire-sensitive small trees filled in the gaps. And our forest became dense, with trees so layered and close together that they were touching each other. So fires were unintentionally blocked by roads and railroads. The cattle and sheep ate the grass. Then along comes fire suppression and logging, removing the big trees. And you know what happened? All these factors worked together to allow the forest to fill in, creating what I call the current epidemic of trees. Then along comes fire suppression and logging, removing the big trees, and you know what happened? All these factors work together to allow the forest to fill in, creating what I call the current epidemic of trees. Two recently published studies tell us that more than 60% of all new housing starts are being built in this flammable and dangerous mess. So when we do get a fire, large areas can literally go up in smoke. How do you feel now about the forest image that I first showed you? It scares the heck out of me. Your favorite places are burned black. Where will you go to breathe deep and slow? Thank you.
Absolutely devastating. The flames that you see here on the side of the road is nothing compared to what we saw today. The entire town of Paradise is gone. Now here in Chico, being threatened.
Everything was ignited. By the time I got out of my house, it was like everything was on fire.
Forrest Woodcock grabbed his dogs and sped off with his mom, sister, and only the clothes on their backs, holding their breath.
It didn't feel real to me. Like, I honestly thought I wasn't going to make it out of there.
As hundreds began fleeing, they watched as their entire...
It was ignited. By the time I got out of my house, it was like everything was on fire.
Forrest Woodcock grabbed his dogs and sped off with his mom, sister, and only the clothes on their backs, holding their breath.
It didn't feel real to me. Like, I honestly thought I wasn't going to make it out of there.
As hundreds began fleeing, Entire town burned to the ground.
Paradise High School was on fire. The gas stations all around were on fire.
The winds are absolutely relentless. This fire is destroying everything in its path, including this elementary school. Fire has been all around us all day. Down power lines, an extremely dangerous situation for firefighters. Those buildings still standing in the heart of Paradise at 3 in the afternoon were torched by 5 as winds continue to devour everything, including the Safeway, hundreds of homes, even a church, and nearly every school in town. Firefighters from around the state trying their best to protect the community from the furious flames with no mercy in sight. While Forrest made it out, others didn't make it.
The hardest thing about this all is the people that may not have had the benefit that I had to get out when I got out. I started crying because that was like, that was really hard for me.
Unimaginably hard for hundreds who've literally lost it all.
It's like all of my childhood and all the memories that I have in the town, everything that I've ever had in my life is burned to the ground. Like everything is gone.
And we'll have another line.
Here's another house, Sunset Oaks. There's a house that seems to have survived the fire for now. And then there's a building next to it that seems to have burnt down. Not sure if it's a house. There's another home.